for me behind the curtain, but I wasn't prepared for the intensity and suddenness with which it arrived. Prior to my own mortality, I learned a great deal about death throughout my formative years in Haiti, a very colorful country. It had been there the whole time. I knew it and had seen it. Even though death itself wouldn't have shocked me, the fact that it occurred to me was the most strange and remarkable thing. This is my story, in a nutshell. Getting engaged in 2014 was a high point in my life. Everything was fine. I lived in her apartment, and she lived in mine. They were completely different. Since we went out, had an amazing time, it was a day to remember. So when I dropped her down, I went back to my apartment around 11 o'clock. Everything was okay when I went to bed, as it always is. So following our brief chat, I retired to my bed. Early in the morning, I had a dream-like experience in which I felt like I was going through a tunnel. Nevertheless, quickly realized that it was genuine. Being in the tunnel at the same time as everyone else was a fantastic stroke of luck. Our mode of transportation was a van, more precisely a Westphalia, and I am also well versed in vehicles. Then, since I am the sort of guy who used to study death and associated subjects, I thought, hey, I had a feeling I know where we are, as we lowered ourselves into the poorly illuminated tunnel. To be honest, I never thought I'd be joining so many other people in that tunnel as we descend farther and further. I was still standing there, thinking, okay, only if you die, you can get in that. At the ultimate end, you'll find this kind of light and escape. The question, could I be dead, kept popping into my head. As I continued my descent toward the exit, the most bizarre thought crossed my mind. Could hear my mother's voice. Suddenly, my body, which had been sound sleeping on the bed, shut down, totally shut down, like dead, as my mom in Florida yelled out, "Oh no, we are dead." I became cognizant of that upon realizing my own demise. Standing up and staring about in surprise, I heard my mother remark that we are dead when I came from my body. Standing in front of my closet now that I'm dead, I still can't look at my body because it was so real and vivid, too interesting. When I checked on it, I felt like hiding my body, looking throughout my closet. I then turned around and kept looking. It occurred to me, wow, look at all these things I have. Look at all these clothes, this jewelry, this money. I was filled with deep sorrow since nothing I found could revitalize me. I know that it's the reason people fight, but it wasn't useful when we were fighting for it. It dawned on me, materialism isn't the place to discover serenity. I thought, wow, that's pretty intense. That material stuff doesn't bring anything more than material peace, but spiritual peace is not in material stuff. My flat was not huge, but it was more than plenty, so I simply left the room. As a result, I got out of bed, turned around, and went into the living room. Going to the spot where my library was situated was my next move. I reached over and took a book from the shelf as that was all I could see. I felt a mix of regret and confusion at my actions. I had to let go of a wealth of knowledge and a stack of books that I had never cracked up, much less read, so I felt a great deal of sadness. So I thought, wow, it's interesting that I was sad about the books, but none of that about the other stuff I had. So I said, okay, interesting, but I wasn't scared. As I stood there, a mix of delight and skepticism washed over me. It was like being transported back in time, and I couldn't help but wonder, how could I be dead in this apartment by myself? Suddenly, I was on a magnificent stage, the type where musicians from all walks of life would perform. As I stood there, the sheer distance between Earth and the stars became crystal clear. Then, from behind the scenes, someone said, "You need to bow down to say your goodbyes to Earth." I was perplexed and asked, "Bow down to say my goodbyes? What do you mean?" Then the voice explained, "The Earth is nothing but a play. You were an actor. I thought, oh, that's interesting. The earth is a play. As the voice instructed me to bow down, the curtains started to draw together, forming a close, just like in a theater. I questioned, so what? I won't have any contact with Earth. None of that. No news, good news, bad news, nobody I knew. I mean, after everything I've been through, what's the use? As the curtain came down, the voice said, the Earth was just a play. Curious, I asked, what's all that about? In response, the voice ordered, bow down. In a theatrical fashion, I instantly bowed. In this alternate reality, flying is more prevalent than transportation, and we were both whisked away to it at the same time. Feelings of being transported there are heightened by the magnitude and splendor of the location. Well, that's the way it is. In the hereafter, I felt an abundance of love, enthusiasm, and life. Even though I couldn't see a thing, I knew I was there because I could feel and see it. There, I would muse on a wide range of topics, including the meaning of life, the nature of love and hate, the human condition, and the principles of life itself. Having this sphere while in a realm where I was flying, navigating, or, I don't know, bathing felt strange, too. I felt so strong at that moment, like I could hold the universe and Earth in my fist. Even though I didn't feel threatened, I couldn't shake the sensation that something was holding me back from progressing. Even though I knew it wasn't true, I couldn't help but think, what if I don't make it? My loved ones will be worried, and I could come tell them I'm okay. It was like I could pretend to be dead. Wow, maybe I can return to frightening them or something like that. I thought, since I didn't feel frightened or worried. Well, I could even go to my funeral and let them know that I'm okay by some sign. Like, you know, that I know I'm not dead and I'm there, just they cannot see me. All sorts of emotions welled up in me as I thought about it. What would happen if they discovered my lifeless body there, on that bed, lying there? Although I didn't worry much because I knew my care was being taken care of, my fiancé was still on my thoughts. Not only did I feel extremely sensitive, but I also felt intense love. And we were in that realm of wonderful energy, which is difficult to describe because you had to be there to feel its beauty. Because there is no time passing in that realm, it is also the location of the climax. I could almost feel myself walking around that vast valley, taking it all in. That place is absolutely stunning, beautiful, tranquil. It seemed like the music was coming from out of nowhere. From that point on, I just kept aimlessly wandering. As I got closer, I could barely distinguish between the music, the voice, and the ambient noise. It was at that same moment when I saw this magnificent gate. It was awe-inspiring and gigantic. It was totally unexpected. It was so huge and magnificent that I thought, wow, this is fascinating to look at because it reaches the heavens. I had never seen anything like that. My view of the peak was entirely blocked. Because it was so massive, I would have to get on my hands and knees to examine it. Its height, though, was mind-boggling. I felt at one with nature as I stood there and marveled at the gate, decorations, mechanism, and calming music. Then there was this pervasive discomfort that I couldn't shake. I thought to myself, why am I worried? Okay, then everything was fine for a moment. Then I thought, well, if ever somebody comes out of this gate, I'm going to have to ask all the life questions about the Jesus situation. In light of all that humanity has endured and the reality underlying it all, because truth, and not survival, is the meaning of existence. I was expecting someone to greet me as I waited patiently at the gate. Even though I have many Christian relatives, I still prefer to be accepted by Jesus, not because I'm declaring, oh well, finally I'm with Jesus, but because I have many questions. I waited patiently. The wait felt like a lifetime, but it was worthwhile because the experience was spectacular. The setting was very stunning, and I couldn't help but think, wow, that's the place to be, as the melodies complemented my environment. On one occasion, I couldn't get my finger on why my chest felt constricted. It was as if something were pressing on it. I did some investigating behind the scenes to find out if I really wanted to go there. Everything clicked into place when I had a, okay. Should I stay? Should I go? Should I stay? Should I go? Moment. Hold on a second. Can't go much farther than that gate. I felt like I had arrived there, and I'm not going back. This is it. No, I can't go for a lot of reasons, was my immediate reaction the moment the thought occurred to me. For starters, what exactly would I say if I gave it a go? Second, no matter how much I want to, I simply do not think I am capable of completing the task. My fiancée stayed in my thoughts. She would call me first thing in the morning. Sometimes she'd call me, and I'd return her call. It was as though she thought I would do it often. Every time she dropped by, she would insert the keys into the apartment's lock, activate the keypad, and then find me asleep in bed. No, that's not something she should see. I begged her, seemingly pleading for it to not come to pass. And then there are the things that were originally promised to me, my parents and my life. Consequently, I am not convinced it would be totally incorrect. The reason behind this is that in the past, individuals have told me things that happen when my life is about to end. At that very moment, though, I thought, no, it can't be. This isn't the way to go. So why should I die now? And if I cross, I know it's the end, but I can't accept that. I'm not pleased with that decision. The consequences, people would think. I was high, I overdosed, or anything else. I got shot. Anything could be blamed for my death, because they wouldn't know. And as I stood there arguing my case, I felt both pushed and very high, and I returned to my true self. In addition, I use that metaphor because it seemed like there was an ear-splitting silence. As I reintegrated into my body, I gasped for oxygen and did a little tumble. Then I blinked and thought, no, 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 it can't be. That realm exudes such overwhelming love. Being there would make you feel magnificent, safe, cheerful, courageous, and great. Just like sight and sound, good feelings like pleasure, happiness, and contentment are real. Despite the fact that you may have been there before, the passage of time makes it feel like you've never been there at all. Because it was so incredible and powerful, I tried to go back to sleep or act like I was dying again. But every time I would pat my head on the pillow and tell myself, no, 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 no. What really made me want to go back was not the desire to die, but rather the wonderful energy and love that surrounded me, which gave me an overwhelming feeling of safety and security. Thought to myself as I slammed my head against the bed, hey, you can't do that. It's the realm of death, and now you're back to life. Consider what could have been, because if ever you crossed that gate, that would have been the end. And now you're back, you had the experience. You should consider that as the greatest experience of your life. I glanced at the clock and saw that it was about 5:30 in the morning. In addition, I knew my Florida-based acquaintance worked the night shift the second I heard I could only reach her by contacting her. So I contacted a friend and said, you know what? Let me see who can I call. I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I said to myself, well, she could be home by then. For that reason, I contacted her via phone. She seemed confused and inquired why I had called so early when she picked up the phone. She wanted to know what was wrong after I told her I had died and come back. Said again, yes, I just died and came back. It was the most unusual and unique experience. She listened carefully for more than 30 minutes while I recounted what had happened. I cut off the phone and she went to bed once we finished talking about it. Consequently, I rose from my bed and exited the room at some time close to 6 o'clock. As I gathered my belongings and looked around the room one last time, I couldn't help but think, wow, what an experience I had. It was as if something had changed within me, making all my past events meaningless. Everything seems to have slipped my mind at once. The cars, the money, the clothes, the jewels, and this and that. They were unnecessary and didn't do anything. I valued my library more than anything else in my life. Ran inside to peruse my library materials in the living room, overcome with sadness and grief. I was tempted to take it with me when I went to my library after reading a few pages, but I forced myself to resist. While I held it in high regard, I couldn't help but think, that's knowledge that a lot of people don't have. That's why we got a lot of people that are led astray because they don't know. As a result of going through all these feelings upon my return, I underwent a positive transformation. Now, it's not about making money or material gain. Love, care, compassion, and relationships, and more especially, good relationships, are at its core. The one that concerns God is the other one, and you should pay attention to that. When you stare at another person, you are directing your sight toward God. That is the fundamental reason why everyone is so frustrated. Here we have one person saying this and another saying that. Even though the afterlife is devoid of religion, hostility, and dread, they are unable to reach a consensus. Everyone seems to be doing their part, at least from my vantage point. No one has ever said, somebody's better than the other to me since that day. It changed my life forever. My own disbelief at being in that well was palpable. This is the most out-of-the-ordinary event that has ever happened to me, and I've been keeping it a secret for the past 10 years until I finally decided to include it in a book that compiles reports of near-death experiences, NDEs. The realization that there are countless ways to die finally set in. There are an infinite number of more ways to meet your doom. I'm only using 1,000 as a metaphor. Growing up in two states with very different religious traditions, due to my parents' open-mindedness, exposed me to many different perspectives on sexuality and religion. It is critical to maintain a constant equilibrium. Death arrives while you sleep, and the contrary is also true. I realized this while on my search. And that is how death works, because we have no idea when it will be possible to open it again. Every blink could be our last. For this reason, I found it moving when Jesus, the one they called Jesus, stated, "Well, she's not dead, she's sleeping." To put death into context, that is how it should be approached. For the profound impact that death had on my life, I will be eternally grateful. I am not frightened by it. Instead of being furious, I'm excited for the task. Also, I just wanted to say thanks for the opportunity to tell my experience and that I wanted you